I'm Gary Waterman, former UK Police Constable. Welcome to part 4 of my evidential research document in relation to the CERN Hadron Collider. We were looking at how this all ties in back into the Israel-Arab War, into the Association of Chief Police Officers, tying into the Doomsday Clock, into the Flemings, into ISIS companies, all sorts of things. And then we came in and looked at 1953, how that tied into MK-Ultra, also the correlation of the Queen. And then we looked at 1954, which was the year that the CERN company was founded. And now we're looking at this document, the Silent Weapons of Quiet Wars document, which, according to the document, also came out in 1954, and where a silent war was declared against the masses. And we're going to look at some information on here. Now, I suspect this document is a genuine, authentic document. If it's not, then the evidence aside from this is absolutely overwhelming. But this really does seem to show what their plans were. So I can't read all of it. It's a big document, but it talks about it here. It says, engineered in the last half decade of the 1940s, the now quiet war machine stood, so to speak, in sparkling gold-plated hardware on the showroom floor by 1954. Remember, this is the year that CERN was founded. With the creation of the... Can't read what that says. In 1954... the promise of unlocking unlimited sources of fusion atomic energy from the heavy hydrogen in seawater and the consequent availability of unlimited social power became a possibility only decades away. Now, remember, the CERN Hadron Collider links into nuclear energy, and we're going to show how they, I believe, tried to deceive me to make me think the threat was from nuclear weapons, when the threat was from CERN, potentially. And we're going to come to that later anyway. Power became possibility only decades away. The combination was irresistible. The quiet war was quietly declared by the international elite at a meeting held in 1954. In 1954, it was well recognised by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades, before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power. For the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. The issue of primary concern, that of dominance, revolved around the subject of the energy nuances. Now, the technology is now here to ensure that the world is transparent, truthful, fair, with full equality, integrity, okay, and if necessary, with incentivized choices. We have to get back to truth, transparency, and trust, everybody. It is absolutely essential. And with moral conscience as the basis for our decisions, we have to. Otherwise, we come too far from our Creator. And that is what I believe is going on, or a big part of it. Reading on a bit further, it says, relay computers. Now, bearing in mind, we've been talking about 1947 and 48. Well, here we have connections to it. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer, invented in 1946, okay, a year before the United Nations petition, which led to the Israel-Arab War, okay, invented by J. Preper Eckert and John Malchley, filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming in 1947 by the mathematician George Dantzig. Then in 1948, the year of the Israel-Arab War, the transistor, invented by J. Bardeen and Brattain and Shockley, promised great expansion of the computer field by reducing space and power requirements. Now, this is leading to the artificial intelligence that we're now seeing, isn't it? And without question, everybody, if we continue to chase technology, it will end humanity. That's an almost certainty. Okay, and these people, and again, I'm going to come to the theory in all of this, or potential theories, in all of what's happening towards the end of these videos. So reading on, it says, with these three inventions under their direction, those in positions of power strongly suspected that it was possible for them to control the whole world with the push of a button. Now that means they were planning a very small number of people to have full control of the world. And what have we got now? The World Economic Forum and those maybe above them that are hiding And it's all criminal, though. It's all fraudulent. So the whole thing falls down. Okay, it has to. Immediately, the Rockefeller Foundation, I've highlighted, got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. So the military all involved. The Rockefeller Foundation. Now, I've only seen in my research, okay, and I haven't searched for Rockefeller, to be honest, but the only place I've seen the Rockefeller name is in the research of Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, and that's in my Jeffrey Epstein research document. We're going to come to Jeffrey Epstein later. Reading on, it says, and I'm going to read all of this bit because this shows you how evil this whole thing is. This is talking about the silent weapon. It makes no obvious explosive noises, causes no obvious physical or mental injuries, and does not obviously interfere with anyone's daily social life. Yet it makes an unmistakable noise, causes unmistakable physical and mental damage, and unmistakably interferes with daily social life, i.e. unmistakable to a trained observer, one who knows what to look for. The public cannot comprehend this weapon, and therefore cannot believe that they are being attacked and subdued by a weapon. The public might instinctively feel that something is wrong, but because of the technical nature of the silent weapon, they cannot express their feeling in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. Therefore, they do not know how to cry for help and do not know how to associate with others to defend themselves against when a silent weapon is applied gradually to the public. The public adapts to its... messed that up a little bit there, but you can read it. Gradually to the public. The public adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, in brackets, psychological via economic, becomes too great and they crack up. Therefore, the silent weapon is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, options and mobility of the individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating and attacking their sources of natural social energy and their physical, mental and emotional strengths and weaknesses. Unreal, isn't it? It's just unreal, but this appears to be what's happening. And here's the name Rothschild. Okay, remember we've looked at and seen Rothschild all the way through this research in relation to CERN. Here's the name Rothschild again. I'm not going to read all of that. You can pause that. And it just talks about the importance of energy to them in how they manipulate everybody. Again, the name Rothschild features here. So Mr. Rothschild had discovered that currency or deposit loan accounts had the required appearance of power that could be used to induce people, inductance with people corresponding to a magnetic field into surrendering their real wealth in exchange for a promise of greater wealth intended in, can't read that, something of real compensation. They would put up real collateral in exchange for a loan of promissory notes. Rothschild found that he could issue more notes than he had been had backing for, so long as he had someone's stock of gold as a persuader to show to big customers. Deception. Rothschild loaned his promissory notes to individuals and to governments. They would create overconfidence, then he would make money scarce, tighten control of the system, and collect the collateral through the obligation of contracts. The cycle was then repeated. These pressures could be used to ignite a war. Then he would control the availability of currency to determine who would win the war. That government, which agreed to give him control of its economic system, got his support. Collection of debts was guaranteed by economic aid to the enemy of the debtor. The profit derived from this economic mythology made Rothschild all the more wealthy and all the more able to extend his wealth. He found that the public greed would allow currency to be printed by governments order beyond the limits, in brackets inflation, of backing in precious metals or the production of goods and services, in brackets gross national product GNP. In order to achieve such sovereignty, we must at least achieve this one end, that the public will not make either the logical or mathematical connection between economics and the other energy sciences, or learn to apply such knowledge. This is becoming increasingly difficult to control because more and more businesses are making demands upon their computer programmers to create and apply mathematical models for the management of those businesses. It is only a matter of time before the now breed of private programmer economists will catch on to the far-reaching implications of the work begun in Harvard in 1948, remember the same year as the Israel-Arab War, all ties in. The speed with which they can communicate their warning to the public will largely depend on how effective we have been in controlling the media, subverting education, and keeping the public distracted with matters of no real importance. And they have, unfortunately, pretty much full control over all information. But some of it has leaked through. And I hope and I think and I pray enough has leaked through to create the change. And I think that's why they're panicking, and it's triggered all of these massive events now as the evidence is being exposed. And of course, they're dealing with somebody who is quite unique, because I was within their government system. I didn't know about this, of course. I wouldn't have even worked for them had I known about all of this going on, the police. But, you know, they've got a real problem on their hands with me. They've got a real problem on their hands. But, you know, I'll probably be murdered over this. But at the end of the day, I've got to be willing to die, haven't I? When there's children, then I'm willing to sacrifice everything. They've threatened to take my home, take my vehicle. I've had what I believe are veiled threats against me. There's no question in my mind that I have to keep going, because we can't live in a world like this, and we cannot allow the suffering of children. I'm stopping paying everything. I can't even pay my insurance on the van because it's all centralised and linked to this crime and fraud and child abuse and murder. Okay, so we have to shut this down. So a short list of outputs. Outputs create controlled situations, manipulation of the economy, hence society, controlled by control of compensation and income. Allocate opportunities, destroys opportunities. Controls the economic environment, controls the availability of raw materials, controls capital, controls bank rates, controls the inflation of the currency, controls the possession of property, controls the industrial capacity, controls manufacturing, the availability of goods, the prices of commodities, services the labour force, payments to government officials, controls the legal functions, the personal data files, uncorruptible by the party slandered, controls advertising, media content, material availability for TV viewing, disengage attention from the real issues, engages emotions, creates disorder, chaos, and insanity. It's just evil, guys, isn't it? As you read through this, controls design of more probing tax forms, controls surveillance, the storage of information, psychological analysis and profiles of individuals. Okay, so this is where we're getting the labelling of mental health issues. They've tried it a couple of times with me, but it's very difficult when you've got all of this evidence to support everything, which is verifiable and corroborative. Again, this makes me very difficult for them to know how to deal with, which is why we're getting all of these changes. And there's no better time now to change the world. Controls legal functions, controls sociological factors, controls health options, preys on weakness, cripples strengths, leeches wealth and substance. Okay, these are their strategies, everybody. And I am going to get to the really important Hadron Collider stuff, but I'm just building up to showing you where this all appears to have come from, and the corruption behind all of this, and key times. So here are a table of strategies here. Do on the left, do not, to achieve what on the right. Keep the public ignorant. Less public organisation. Access to control points, prices and sales. Required reaction to output for feedback. Create preoccupation, lower defenses. Is that? Attack the family unit. I mean, my goodness me. To the right, control of the education of the young. Give them less cash and more credit and doles. On the right, more self-indulgence and more data. What are we seeing at the moment? Have you seen it on the news? All the cyber attacks, data from store cards that everyone's get. That's why store cards are so important to them, because they get everyone's data. Then they say they've been hacked. Well, then that information can be used in criminality, but it's them allowing it. Okay. Attack the privacy of the church. Destroy faith in this sort of government. Now, the Rothschilds are linked very closely to the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Church of England. The Flemings are part of a church group, okay, linked to the Rothschilds. There's no moral conscience here at all. There's no creator in them, okay? Social conformity, computer programming, simplicity. On the left, minimize the tax protest, okay? They don't want people protesting about tax, which maximizes economic data, minimum enforcement of the problems. Stabilize the consent coefficients. Stabilize the consent. On the right, simplicity. Left, tight control of variables. On the right, simpler computer input data, greater predictability. On the left, establish boundary conditions. Problem, simplicity, solution of differential and different questions. On the left, proper timing, less data, shift and blurring. On the left, maximum resistance to control equals maximum control. On the left, maximum control equals ultimate objective. Maximum control to fit their lifestyle, what they want, their criminal lifestyle. But ultimately here, I think we're talking, potentially a bigger threat to humanity. Collapse of currency on the left, destroy the faith of the American people in each other. But this isn't just America now. This is international, everybody. Last page on this. There's a lot more I could show, but I want to get on with the CERN stuff. Divergence, the primary strategy. I think does that diversion, sorry, the primary strategy. My eyes are terrible. Experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems principles on the one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. This is achieved by, number one, disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities by providing a low-quality program of public education in mathematics, logic, I think that says, systems design and economics, and by discouraging technical creativity. Number two, engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks, in brackets, mental and emotional rape, by way of constant barrage of sex, violence and wars in the media, especially the TV and the newspapers. B, giving them what they desire in excess, junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need. It's just unreal. Now, there's a huge problem with pornography at the moment. Huge problem with degrading pornography. Okay, we've got paedophilic pornography, which is readily available. This is all deliberate. They could stop this. They control all information. They're allowing it deliberately. The sexualization of children. Okay, now we've got a massive problem with what appears to be the abuse of children and the blood taken from tortured children and their murder. Number three, rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to the deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. It's just pure evil, isn't it? These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapons of social automation technology. The general rule is that there is profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer the solutions, everybody. Right, reading on. So, 2012 is a very relevant year in everything. And we're going to start with this bit of research in relation to the Mayan calendar. Now, I remember this back in 2011, 2012, and they were talking about this. And here it says, the Mayan civilization did not predict the end of the world in 2012, but rather the conclusion of a cycle in their long counter calendar, which began in 3114 BC. This cycle, spanning 5,125 years, reached its completion on December the 21st, 2012, marking a transition to a new era, not a cataclysm, according to this. Here's some news articles in relation to it from 2012. You can see here, talking about Mayan Day of Apocalypse, Mayan Apocalypse, End of the World, or New Beginning, I believe. Another one on the left, Mayan Apocalypse, Panic Spreads as December the 21st approaches. On the bottom left there, the Mayan Apocalypse, a video on it. So 2012, they were talking about the end of the Mayan calendar, and there was lots of talk about it being the end of the world. So here's the 2012 apocalyptic phenomenon. And this does link in with CERN. You're going to see why I'm saying this. So the 2012 phenomenon was a range of eschatological beliefs that cataclysm or transformative events would occur on or around the 21st of December 2012. This date was regarded as the end date of the 5,126-year long cycle in the Mesoamerican long count calendar. Various astronomical alignments and numerological formula were proposed for this date. A New Age interpretation held that the date marked the start of the period during which Earth and its inhabitants would undergo a positive physical or spiritual transformation, and the 21st December 2012 would mark the beginning of a new era. Others suggested the date marked the end of the world or a similar catastrophe. Scenarios suggested for the end of time end of the world included the arrival of the next solar maximum, an interaction between Earth and Sagittarius A, a supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy. Okay, going to come to that, becomes relevant. The Nibiru cataclysm in which Earth would collide with a mystical planet. And there's various other things there. So this was something that was really big back then. So let's have a look at the planet X. First of all, Nibiru. Some believers in a 2012 doomsday claimed, remember, the doomsday clock ties into all of this research and links back into the Flemings. Okay, so we're talking about doomsday here. Claimed that the planet called Planet X, or Nibiru, would collide with or pass by the Earth. The idea, which had appeared in various forms since 1995, initially predicted doomsday in May 2003. Now, 1995, when this started, is a key year, because this was the creation of the Hakluyt Advisory Company, which links the Russian government to the American government, to the Flemings, to the royal family, to Ukraine via the Flemings, to the international government fraud, all tying in through that company that was started in 1995 and has now dissolved since I've exposed it. So I suspect they brought up this idea, around that time to help control and create fear-induced control, potentially, over humanity. And that could be, the control could be so that they finalise their plans in relation to CERN. And we're going to come to that, as we've said, later. Now, remember, we're talking about Planet X. Okay, well, Elon Musk took over Twitter and changed it to X, and that process started in 2022. Okay, the same year that I made inquiries within Export Manor Freehold Limited that led to all of these changes. That is not a coincidence. It says here, in March 2023, following the October 2022 acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk, okay, Musk stated that his goal with the acquisition was to promote free speech. He's suppressing me massively on X. I can literally put a few lines. Recently, I've had to put multiple entries just to try and get a few sentences out that I needed to put in my video links. They are suppressing it massively. Okay, so this was, again, triggered March 2022, X, tying in with the what I believe was going to be a mass deception, apocalyptic deception. Now, here's Elon Musk. Remember, we mentioned earlier, November 2022. There's various connections to that month and October, obviously Halloween. Well, he wore this outfit, according to the research, on Halloween in 2022, and it has a Baphomet, the symbol of the Church of Satan, on the front. And the Baphomet we talked about in the last part. But he's also made mention, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but a clip of an interview, and he talks about a new Egyptian god. Okay, so I suspect this is a deception to make you believe it's Satan. All of this stuff tying into the satanic church, etc. I suspect they've infiltrated it to make it appear to be Satan. That's what I suspect based on the evidence at the moment. So in 2009, they released the movie called 2012, okay, which was about an apocalyptic event, okay, huge disastrous events, wasn't it, on Earth, and that came out in 2009, okay, and this becomes relevant. Now, my research surrounding that movie, I have, and hopefully you can read this. So the director of that movie was Roland Emmerich. And you can see here, actually, the latest up there. I didn't notice that. Look, this latest accepted revision was in 2020. It's 2025. Sorry, I thought it said 2022. So he was born in 1955. Okay, remember the symbolism they're potentially using, or they're actually using real people born these years. Was obviously what I've said earlier is when Walt Disney had the first Disney resort in America, and his early life here. He's linked to Germany. And in 1977, the year I was born, he began attending University of Television and Film in Munich in Germany. After watching Star Wars, he instead decided to enroll in the school's film director program. Star Wars came out the first year, on the year I was born, and it's called A New Hope, as I've mentioned before. Further down on the research for him, he's gay and is a firm advocate of LGBT rights. And he is a collector of art, and he has some art in relation to the Pope and Princess Diana. Now, he also directed a movie that came out in, I believe it was 2022, called Moonfall. Now, Moonfall, I suspect it's a reference to Moonshot, and Moonshot, okay, makes reference to the moon landing in 1969. And we've already been talking about the relevance of 1969 because of Charles becoming the Prince of Wales on that year. Moonshot also ties in with the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, which we're looking at now. And that's because this organisation links to the Earthshot Prize, okay, which was conceived by Prince William on the 31st of December 2019, according to the research, and that is the same month as the outbreak in Wuhan, okay, and that was named, the Earthshot Prize was named after Moonshot, okay. Now, Roland Emmerich, the research surrounding Roland Emmerich, which I haven't shown, and I've only done a little bit of it, does appear to be linking back into the same fraudulent entity companies as well. So here's the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Remember, 2009, this movie came out, about 2012. Well, this company, a very key company in all of this, was also founded in 2009. You can see here it came out 2009, originally called the Foundation of Prince William and Prince Harry. And it changed its name on the 12th of July 2012. And we're going to come to why that's so important in a minute. But further on, you can see the other name changes. One up here, September 2019. Bearing in mind what we've just been talking about. 3 months before the Earthshot Prize was created and the outbreak of, supposedly the outbreak of COVID. Okay. Now, they also changed their name again for the last time in November 2022. Remember what we've just been talking about, the Halloween party, everything going on in 2022, where they changed the name again in 2022, and that's when they changed it to the Royal Foundation of Prince and Princess of Wales. So that was 2009, that company was started. Same year as the movie was made for 2012, and also the same year, which is all very relevant, it was the Iranian Green Movement. Here's the Iranian Green Movement, and it was, or Green Wave of Iran, also referred to as the Persian Awakening of Persian Spring by the Western media, refers to the political movement that arose after the 12th of June 2009 Iranian presidential election and lasted until early 2010, in which protesters demanded the removal of Mohammed Ahmadinejad. Sorry if I'm pronouncing all these wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to show the research surrounding this on another document, but that is very important and appears to be a deception linking in with climate change. And the Earthshot Prize links to supposed climate change as well, okay? That actually details the plan, the 2030 plan in relation to climate change, ending in 2030. All, I suspect, part of this international collaborative deception and fraud. So, we have the Iranian Green Movement in 2009. We have the Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. We also have information here, and I haven't shown the full article, but it is there, suggesting that the Prince of Wales converted to being a Muslim. Okay? And I believe that was in 1997. I'm not too sure. But here, this article certainly talks of fall of 1997. Well, that is the same year as the death of the Princess of Wales, okay, Princess Diana, and within 2 months, the death of the founder of the Church of Satan. And we're going to come to that a bit later. But we're coming to the end now. We've done over half an hour again. I'm sorry I haven't got much in relation to CERN, but we're getting there. There's some incredibly important information tying in with Stephen Hawking's, Jeffrey Epstein, international government fraud, linking with CERN and this potential plan to end the universe and time, or make people, or the right person and people, believe that that is their plan. Thanks very much for watching.